hear you too.
Okay, good.
You're on.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October 14th meeting of the Town Board of the Town of Newcastle. The town has been in executive session, and I would like to ask for a motion to open the work session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and today we have a report on a speed limit reduction study conducted by Creighton Manning. I originally requested this report because of a new law enacted by the New York State Governor, maybe now a couple of years ago, allowing local municipalities to lower, I believe towns, to lower the speed limit from 30 miles an hour in residential areas, from 30 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour, provided that the town conduct an engineering study. And so because we have had a lot of traffic safety issues in town, as I'm sure many other towns have experienced, I decided that this would be something that the town could benefit from. And so I asked our town administrator, Rob Deary, and our town and our Newcastle Chief of Police, Jim Carroll, to work with an engineering consultant, and we picked Creighton Manning. And Creighton Manning is here to report on their study today. Rob or Chief, do you want to say anything to
No, I'm not.
introduce?
Sure, it's Sarah Carroll from
Okay.
Creighton Manning, but there's no relation. And we enjoyed working with her, we met with her on Friday, had a preliminary discussion and findings and, wanted to know what was gonna be said tonight, so
Okay,
I think you're doing a great job.
okay, well, welcome, and feel free to start.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the introduction and for having me tonight. As you already mentioned about the New York State law that was changed, I don't need to go through these highlights. Oh, I should mention, you all have a copy of this presentation in front of you. There are two errors on them that I will get to when I get to that point of my presentation. I do apologize, and I'm happy to send you the updated presentation after. So if I kind of skip over the law, next question I like to start with is why lower speeds? And just to really drive home what we're doing, what the purpose was of reducing the speeds, giving the towns the opportunity to reduce speeds from 30 to 25. And the most important thing is safety and the fact that reducing speeds from 30 to 25 drastically reduces the severity of an injury for a pedestrian when struck by a vehicle. This graphic on the right is something that we see a lot in our engineering world, and it's, I think, really impactful to see that 5 to 10 mile an hour difference can drastically improve someone's level of injury and or hopefully not fatality. A few other bullets to point out on here, there's studies that show that just posting a speed sign can lower the 85th percentile speed by almost up to 3 miles per hour. That's without any other modifications to the road. And then two other kind of, not as impactful as safety, but really important to communities is reducing vehicle speeds is at the heart of traffic calming, and a lot of the roadway design that we're looking at doing and improving pedestrian, bicycle, transit connectivity, that all comes into play with lower speeds, as well as improving the comfort and quality of life and really providing good context-sensitive areas for people to want to be in and kind of conduct their lifestyle in.
Can I stop you for a moment?
Sure.
When I introduced the topic and the meeting, my microphone wasn't on, so I don't know if the audience, if anyone
There's microphones
heard. Okay,
that should pick it up from up there.
okay, let's just make sure with the guys in the back. Are you,
No,
okay,
hear you.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, go
Good.
ahead, sorry.
Okay, great. So I'd like to start out by just pointing out that there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. There is not one equation for what to post a speed or what to change a speed limit to. And with a lot of this 25 mile per hour change over the last almost 5 years, we're pulling from as many different resources as we can. We've done this at Creighton Manning. We've done this study for a number of other municipalities where other consultant partners have done it, and we're really trying to all collectively pull together the best information and tools we can to come up with a good speed limit for a road. And so what we really are looking at right now is the MUTCD, the latest edition. That's the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. We also have the New York State Supplement, so that's New York State coming out and looking at the MUTCD, which is a federal guidance, and saying what works better for us in New York State. And then they have this traffic safety and mobility instruction. There's a number of other guidances, but what I'm going to talk about today really comes out of these 3 documents. And what this tells us is that we should set a speed limit for a road based on roadway context and other items like 85th percentile speed, which I'll get into explaining what that is, floating vehicle check, and US Limits 2, which is a federal web-based tool you can all go on yourselves and input in. It's just asking for typical background data on a corridor. It really hangs its hat on 85th percentile speed, which is something that we are trying to get away from as we move forward with how to reduce or how to set speed limits. With saying that, I'd like to just describe what 85th percentile speed is. So that is the speed at which 85% of drivers are traveling under ideal condition. And really that is an indicator of safe and reasonable speeds that everyone feels comfortable going. Drivers typically feel comfortable driving at a speed based on the surrounding roadway environment and surface condition, regardless of the posted speed. So I'm gonna show you some good examples of this where just because the speed says it, I'm sure we've all experienced it, we feel like we can drive faster or we feel like we need to drive slower. And where the concern comes in and why we rely on 85th percentile speed so much is because of the variability when you start having someone who's driving faster because they're able to versus someone driving slower because the speed sign tells them to drive slower. And that's what we're trying to avoid because that can create safety issues as well. And just to give you a few examples of that, this is a roadway up near the Albany Capital Region. This is a posted 30-mile-per-hour road. 4 lanes, no sidewalks, no pedestrian bicycle accommodations, no driveways. I'm guessing all of us would probably drive faster than 30 miles per hour. Chief, close your ears. But we'd probably drive faster than 30 miles per hour on this road. There's nothing indicating you should slow down.
Holly, would you? I don't believe it. I don't believe Holly would.
What? No, I would.
It's cruise control.
Right. So this is another 30-mile-per-hour road. We still have 4 lanes of traffic, but travel lanes are a little bit more narrow. There's no shoulder. There's a landscape median, sidewalks, driveways. Would you tell yourself there's probably families walking their dog out here, kids riding bikes? Maybe we're going to drive a little bit slower and actually adhere to the 30-mile-per-hour speed. This is another street that is also posted at 30 miles per hour. This is a one-way, but you have parking on both sides, street trees, sidewalks, driveways, houses close up to the road. You're probably not going to drive 30 on this road. You're probably going to be closer to 20. So it just gives you an idea of context-sensitive design related to speed signs and the fact that this says 30, so someone could drive 30, while you also have somebody driving 20 because that's what they feel more comfortable doing. So that's just some background on the project. Now I'd like to get into your specific town. I know you know it much better than I do, but I have a map up on the screen of what we're calling the study area, which is the entire town. And we can't look at every single street and make a recommendation based off of all that data on every single street. So we try to take representative data from as many corridors as we can. And what we did for this project is we ruled out all state and county owned roads. With this law, we're not allowed to change those roads, their speed limits. So we're only looking at town owned roads. And then we pulled out what you're seeing as that blue color or purple color, depending on what screen you're looking at. Those are local roads. So those are your residential streets, your kind of one way into a neighborhood. Maybe they're not connecting other roads, or if they are, they have less volume on them, lower known speeds. So those are the streets that we chose not to look at and assume that they're going to be 25 miles per hour. We're kind of coming into this with the problem for us and trying to figure out how to get to that answer. So what we really focus on, what I'd like to focus on today, is the 19 corridors that are highlighted in green, yellow, red. They also have yellow circles on them. Those are the streets that we worked with our team to want to look at further. So those are streets that we collected data on. We looked at additional information, and then we're going to make recommendations based on those example streets.
And I'm sorry, why did you have some green that you didn't study?
Yep, so the green, if you look at the legend on the top left, that's your AADT, that's your volumes, your average annual daily traffic. So that is how many cars are traveling on that road per day. So the green are less than 1,500 vehicles per day, all the way up to red, which is over 5,000 vehicles per day. So you can see Reader's Digest Road, you're looking at well over 5,000 cars per day. So it just gives us an indication of how traveled these roads are.
No, I get that, but for example, you have some that are green that you studied, but some that are green that you didn't study.
Right, so the green gives us an indication of the volumes, but the yellow corridor, the yellow circles with the numbers on them are the streets that we got additional data on, and that we looked at further. So we didn't necessarily look at every street that
Gotcha.
was color coded. That just gave us a background of the data that we had available for your town. And if anything comes up throughout the presentation that you think lends itself to needing additional data, or you have question marks, you know your roads better than I do, happy to take down notes on that.
Can I add that, the collector roads were a no-brainer, right? They were guaranteed to be done, at first, and then some of the other recommendations was for me and some were from Creighton Manning.
Okay,
So to complete our data collection, we had 24-hour traffic data collected. You might have seen the tubes out on the streets. So that was at 19 different locations towards the end of September, beginning of October. Some of them were ripped up, so we had to go back out and set them back out. So that gave us a good indication of volume and speed at specific areas on these corridors. And I'll talk about that a little bit more, but wherever you see the yellow circle on this map is the location of where that data was collected. And that also corresponds with the locations table, just so, again, we're all on the same page here. We also received information that we were able to get from the police department, so they provided some some speed and volume data. We also did, I mentioned earlier very briefly, the follow car method, where you have someone go out and actually drive the corridors and feel what they experience. So we had someone go out and drive all of these corridors, and I asked them to drive the speed that was posted, to drive the speed that they felt like other cars were driving, and then try to drive 25 and come back and kind of take notes on that. So we built that information into our recommendations. And then we pulled GIS-based data. We have DOT crash data, land use data, and functional classification codes that all kind of play into these maps that you're seeing.
Sorry, from my information,
Sure.
what's the functional classification?
Yep, so functional classification for the map on the study area. So functional classification is the way that New York State and the federal government classify roadways. And so at a minimum, it's a local road, a major or minor collector, major or minor arterial. And those all change based on the number of travel lanes, the speed, the volume, what we call certain type of highway, where certain type of control, whether you have control or signals, or if it's like an open highway. So we have all these different classifications, and that helps us as engineers kind of design all of our roads. So because that's public data, we use that as a tool to help narrow down these streets and classify which ones were local, which ones were collectors, which ones are arterials.
So that's what, under that class, that's.
Correct.
Those are your,
Yep.
okay, thank
Yep.
you.
So speed data, we again got data at 19 locations. What you're seeing on this map is just kind of a high level, is the 85th percentile speed greater than or less than 35 miles per hour. And the thought there is that if people are currently traveling 35 and we bring the speed limit down to 25, based on what I said before about the 3 mile per hour difference, we see a 3 to 5 mile per hour difference in speed reduction. If people are going 35, they'll go down to 30 in theory, with a posted speed of 25. So that's kind of our deal breaker number when we're looking at 85th percentile speed. If they're currently going 40 miles per hour, we feel that differential to get to 25 is too severe to not look at further. So I'll get into what that means, but I just wanna, again, describe what's on this map. You have the green corridors are speeds, 85th percentile speeds that are higher than 35. Your red corridors are 85th percentile speeds lower than 35. We also like to look at land use. Again, I mentioned context sensitive design, looking at desired outcome. And what we can do here is look at your zoning for your different areas and look at where it's kind of higher commercial use, where it's higher residential use, where again, you're anticipating pedestrians, bicyclists, any kind of other users of the road besides vehicles, and that helps us build into our recommendation for what to look at. And we looked at crash history, so this heat map that you're seeing, the yellow, red areas are your peak crash locations, but just wanna point out, those are all on the state roads, so I don't wanna alarm you with those. All of those kind of blue areas are likely not roads that we're talking about here, but as you zoom in on this map, which again, you can do if I can send you the digital files for these, you see a lot of kind of little black dots along corridors, and those are individual crash locations. And so again, when we're looking at the existing conditions of some of these corridors, we're looking at how many crashes there are along those corridors and if any of those are as a result of speeding.
So I don't see the state road really clearly indicated here.
Yeah, so they're
Because it
kind of
looks-
ignored, and we can go back and add those state symbology
But
on
you're
this map.
saying these crashes are on state roads, cause right
Correct.
now it looks, for instance, like it's on Inningwood Road, Roaringbrook Road and Douglas Road.
Yeah,
Just from
the
looking at the map, if you hadn't said that, then
it would be
that's what I would
alarming,
have
right?
thought, so I just wanna be sure that, people don't all of a sudden become alarmed that those roads have the most crashes.
Yeah,
'Cause they don't.
we can add in the symbology on there, and kind of maybe put even a disclaimer on there just to make sure it's clear that those are happening on state roads. We could even
Yeah,
pull the
that would
data
be
off,
helpful if
we
we
could
could,
even pull
yeah.
the data off and just show the local, town related crashes if that
No,
would
no,
help.
it's good to know, it's all good,
Okay.
good data to have.
And it's important, the nature of the accident is important,
Correct.
we just discussed, Chief, a few years back, you did something for me, you probably don't recall, but in relation to Reader's Digest and the development there, about the nature of accidents, number wise, it seems significant, but there's little printouts of what happened. So you can actually get a little deeper dive.
Contributing factors
Yeah,
could be, right,
yeah.
could be
okay.
speed, it could be rear end, but it could be, drove too far to the right, hit a boulder, it could be
Yeah,
weather,
it's not,
there's all
so it looks worse here than the reality of it, it's not that any accident is okay.
It's 117 and the sawmill right there, so I think that's what we're talking about.
And this again is just to give us a larger view, because we can't look at every street, but our memo that we submit to you will have a summary, maybe not of every street, but kind of indicating the types of crashes. And what I'll get into this in a couple slides, but on the, there's select streets that we'll wanna dive into that on. So I'm just making a note here to add the shields, so we know those are state roads. So all that data has summarized into why I'm here today, which is that we do recommend a town-wide speed limit of 25 miles per hour. I do apologize, on your slides it says village, so that was one of my errors that I will resend the PDF to you. But I do wanna note that that is with categorical exclusion. And what that means is that there are streets that you are responsible for as a town that we do not feel the data supports being reduced to 25 miles per hour. And so what we've done now is the rest of this presentation will talk about those streets specifically, and what we can do to advance this project with that still known. And so what we did, again, just kind of to summarize this, evaluate the speed limit, looking at past experience, that's your 85th percentile speed, and then your desired outcome. What are you looking for in your town? A safe environment, and having it be feasible. So how can you implement a lower speed limit cost effectively and through enforcement and engagement and education, making sure that people really understand what it is that we're doing. So for the categorical exclusions, our preliminary findings and recommendations are that the streets highlighted in yellow, and I know it might be a little bit hard to see in the printout, are the streets that cannot be reduced to 25. And that's based on the speeds, the existing 85th percentile speeds. That's based on looking at the crash history. Again, not necessarily a good reason to not change the speed, but there's concern there about that speed differential I noted before. And that's also based on our staff who drove those corridors and kind of experienced what other drivers were driving and what they felt was most comfortable on those roads. This is another,
Are you saying, am I understanding correctly that they may warrant it, but you think even if you do it, meaning the town, it's gonna have no practical impact? People will not abide by those speeds? Is that the concern?
so I don't wanna use the word warrant, just because that's
Okay, fair.
technically it's not warranted. We are concerned that if we reduce the streets in yellow to 25, I can show you on the next table. Again, it might be a little bit hard to see right now, but there are some streets that people are driving over 40 miles per hour on currently. And so our concern is that if people are gonna continue to drive 40 miles per hour, now you're posting it at 25, now your speed differential is 15 to 20 miles per hour. And that is where you're going to cause actually more issues than you might have now. And what I wanna really drive home is that we don't, just because we can't reduce those streets currently, doesn't mean you can't in the future. So there's opportunity for, and we'll put this in our recommendations, for traffic calming improvements. There's opportunity for people to experience an entire town driving slower and getting used to driving 25, and eventually come back and maybe revisit the data and see if we can get those speeds a little bit lower. But currently, there are 9 to 10 corridors in the town that, just based on the existing data, existing feel of the road, just posting the lower speed limit sign will not be sufficient enough to get those speeds down. So we can talk about these streets specifically if you wanna go through them, if you have specific questions on them. Really, I just wanna highlight our next steps, which is to finalize these categorical exclusions. As I said, these are preliminary findings. Go ahead.
Yeah, could you explain again the danger of reducing the speed on those roads? What can happen?
So if you are currently have, I think it's up here right now, you have some streets that people are driving, 85% or more people are driving 40 miles per hour or more on your streets. And so the concern is that just posting a speed limit sign is only going to reduce those drivers' speed through statistics by 3 to 5 miles per hour. So now those people are driving closer to 35 in a now 25 mile per hour zone. That's a 10 to 15 mile per hour speed differential that is not safe. It's going to create an unsafe environment for people who are pulling out into the street expecting to drive slower. People are coming up and driving faster behind them, or people are, there's just not enough in the road to slow those people down. A sign is not adequate enough.
So I'm trying to understand the dynamics that actually not just make it unrealistic, but that make it actually dangerous. So is it the expectation that people have that the speeds will be slow? So for instance, would people then develop a feeling that they can walk safely? Or what are the factors that actually cause a danger?
With these certain streets that are
Yeah, the
we
danger
can't change.
by lowering the speed limits in places where.
So I think the first answer to that is the vehicle to vehicle speed differential. So if you have a motorist traveling at 25 miles per hour and a motorist traveling at 40 miles per hour, there's going to be conflict there with, again, turns. You have a lot of curves, you have a lot of vertical change. So if you have someone coming up over, there's sightline issues. So all of those factors play into what people are seeing, experiencing, just as driving. And so the concern is that with these higher speeds that you currently have, just changing this sign isn't enough. With the pedestrians and the bicyclists, there aren't necessarily statistics on what that speed differential will experience for those pedestrians and bicyclists, but if you have somebody as a pedestrian who's trying to cross a street thinking it's a 25-mile-per-hour road, and you have someone coming up actually at 40 miles per hour, that decision time is different too. So the expectation for these people is that they're on a safer, slower road, and people are gonna continue to drive fast, can create conflict zones too.
Okay, I can understand that.
On this chart, can the highlighted in yellow and orange, those are the ones you're excluding?
Yes, so I do wanna, I'm gonna resend this figure as well. There's a few less streets, so what I have up here is a little bit different than what you have on your sheet. So it's actually 9 of the yellow streets are what we're proposing can't be reduced. The orange is highlighted right now as Douglas Road, so we collected data at one location that showed us lower speeds, but the police department had speed radar at a different location on the corridor that showed much higher speeds. So we need to kind of sharpen our pencil on that street and really understand what's actually happening out there, because we have 2 very drastic speeds on that road.
And I think from the community in general, that's one that we get a lot of
That's the biggest issue.
feedback on.
So it's a good thing it's highlighted. Yeah, so we have a little bit more homework to do on Douglas right now to understand what's happening out there. There's some curvature areas and then there's some straightaways. And that will be part of our recommendations too, is because the recommendation is to go townwide with exclusion, there's opportunity for posting certain speed limits along corridors. So if you have one area that lends itself to the 25, great. But part of that street is faster, maybe it's connecting to one of the arterials, it's connecting to one of your adjacent towns. There's opportunity there for having a different posted speed sign on that road, for people to transition from 25 to 30. And so that'll get I don't have that in my presentation now, but that'll be part of our recommendations as well.
You
So,
had mentioned, oh, sorry.
just Whippoorwill is kind of a long and almost like multi-part road, and it looks like you studied sort of like a small portion of it. So if you're recommending a change there, is it going to be for the whole of Whippoorwill?
And so as of now, yes. Again, unless I hear feedback from you, we may need additional data. We can work with the police department to see if they have other radar data at another spot on that street. And then we.
Whippoorwill's already 25 and has been, the entire road, so's
Okay, thank
Rorndale Road, Annandale.
Yeah, a handful of these
So these
are.
Oh, wait,
They're not
so some
going
of
up.
these
I would expect to be
oh.
plenty of people doing 40 on Whippoorwill now.
There are, but even if the,
And more.
and I mean, Sarah can speak to it, but even if the 85th percentile is higher than 30, 35, we're not raising any speed limits.
Correct,
course.
yes,
We shouldn't
thank
try to
you
use
for.
traffic calming.
So
Yes,
just
thank
so
you
I
for saying
understand, the ones in gray on this
Mhm.
current.
Yep.
Are those the ones, I'm confused, are they recommendations for lowered or staying the same? Are they
Staying the
already
same,
25?
staying the same or going to 25. So yes, actually, most of those are actually all happen to be 25. So these are the 19 corridors that we collected speed data on. Of those 19, the ones in white or gray, are actually already 25 miles per hour, but also the 85th percentile speed came in under 35. So it's posted lower, people are driving lower speeds.
So
So nothing will
they're-
happen with those roads.
Okay.
The yellow that you have up on the screen, not on your paper,
Okay.
and I can read them if you wanna like asterisk them with the numbers, I'm happy to do that. But those are the streets that we are recommending, can't be changed to 25 at this time.
So yellow can't be.
Correct. And then the orange is the question mark, that Douglas, that we're just doing a little bit more work on,
So
but
Douglas is the only one. that-
Douglas, we're not sure what the recommendation is yet.
Okay, so just so I understand, so are there any roads that you're recommending lowering to 25?
Everything else in the town except for what's yellow on this list, we are recommending to go to 25.
Oh,
That's
Yeah.
just,
So
that's
it's
just exclusion.
townwide recommendation except for the streets in yellow
Confusing, but yeah, that-
on this table.
Okay.
And you're recommending that for the streets in yellow, we could consider traffic calming measures or other such things?
Correct, yep, and we already started talking about that, we're gonna put that into our recommendations. The typical traffic calming measures that I've seen that are effective at reducing speed, I don't think your corridors are necessarily ready for those, like a speed hump, I don't think that those make sense here.
These,
For
Yes.
for the streets in yellow. But we've talked about the driver feedback signs, so the digital signs that tell you how fast you're going. Those are extremely effective.
So we
You
have
already-
them, but we talked maybe, budgeting for permanent ones on some of those
Okay,
roads with
yeah.
the solar power.
And we talked about that being kind of a rollout, you do a couple a year, or maybe you do a pilot on one corridor, get the speeds down, move that. So those are pretty reasonable measures, and they just go up on a signpost or an existing speed signpost and let people know their
Is it
speeds.
difficult to get approval for those on state and county roads? Cause I know there's one like
Yes,
Near ground.
but we've done them and haven't gotten pushback really, so they kind of are letting us
ask
go with it.
forgiveness.
Yeah.
But on a temporary.
On a temporary basis, the
No.
only one that they really know about that's not been an issue is the one outside Grafton. So, but we haven't, temporary basis has been okay with it.
And just to confirm, it does not touch any state roads.
No, I
it's
understand
recommendations. Okay.
that, yeah. But that's
I'm
where
trying.
I appreciate it.
And I do like what, Sarah said about, in a year or two, when we're more used to the 25 and people are driving slower, that, we relook at some of these again.
Right.
And it might be helpful.
Or even shift them along the corridors. You have these long streets that you're mentioning kind of changes depending on where you are. And
So we could do an abbreviated study of these streets in yellow.
yeah, so
Because
we have more work to do. Our job's not done yet, so we will continue to work on those streets with our recommendations, but it will take time to be able to get that to come down. And so again, just to kind of note where we're at in our study is finalizing those streets, making sure that those yellow streets are the appropriate streets to exclude. Once you're all satisfied with that, your next steps that you're able to do is change the law. You can change your law to townwide 25 with exclusion, and we can help you through that if you'd like with how to list that in your town laws. And then we are already under contract for, if this gets approved, helping you with the sign transition and installation. So trying to help you figure out where all the 30-mile-per-hour signs are, where they need to be replaced to 25. I'm seeing this in another town I'm working on right now. It says townwide speed 30 on every single sign in the entire town. So all those townwide words need to go away. So we're working through that. And as part of those recommendations, we're happy to help work. If you'd like to go forward with the driver feedback signs, we can make some recommendations for where those should go to.
And did you
Okay.
say that traffic calming will be part of your recommendations?
Yes.
As some
Yep, absolutely.
options? Okay.
Yep, and then again, that's kind of up to you what you wanna do with that from there, if you think it's something that's appropriate for the town, and if it's can kind of be turned into a project in the future. A lot of these items can be done with your highway department, so we don't wanna give you too many big projects to do after.
And I wanna ask about the exclusions, and sorry if you mentioned this already. Are there some common characteristics that those roads have?
Common
to make-
characteristics?
Right, to make them not
I think
be subject to the townwide reduction.
I think what's happening is, and I don't know if this is true for every street, but what I've seen on most of these streets is that you have narrow roads, kind of minimal shoulder, no sidewalk, tree lined without a lot of driveways. So you almost have this environment where people aren't seeing obstacles. They're not paying attention to the fact that someone might be crossing the street, someone might be pulling out of their driveway, a ball might be rolling out. You don't have that kind of context up right close to the street that makes people drive slower. And because of the topography and the variation, the curves. I even noticed it driving here today. You have some hills that allow people to go fast down them, and we may have caught some of that in our data with where we set our tubes. So I think those are things that make your community beautiful, and those aren't things you can change. So what we can do is try to come up with recommendations for improvements you can make within that right of way, within that roadway width. We can look at some of those traffic calming items, include intersection improvements, so slowing people down at intersections, so you don't feel like you just have a straightaway all the time. Those are things we can look at.
What are some examples of that?
Of traffic calming
In
measures?
intersection improvements?
Yeah, you have a few nearby. There's bump outs where if there's parking on the street, I didn't see a lot of that in some of these streets where you have on-street parking, but in locations where you have a wider shoulder on-street parking, you could look at bump outs. Some intersection treatments could be like a mini roundabout or traffic circle, mini circles, neighborhood circles in certain areas. I don't think these streets again are appropriate for some of these. I'd love to look at kind of a little bit closer to some of these intersections and see where you have stop signs or traffic signals, if there's any improvements we can make there.
Douglas in particular.
Douglas would be, yeah.
That's a street, maybe this is another factor other than the speed that cars are going at. There are a lot of pedestrians on that road.
Okay.
People do like to walk on that road. And of course, on all the roads, there are a lot of children.
Right.
But how do you factor that into your calculations?
Yeah, so that's where we start writing about and where a lot of this engineering judgment has changed and shifted to desired outcome. So if you want Douglas to be a residential pedestrian friendly corridor, we're gonna put those recommendations in for what that can look like, and that if that's a desired outcome and the decision is to reduce that street to 25 miles per hour, then what are we gonna do to enforce that? To add in additional traffic calming treatments to ensure that there's that engineering side, making sure people are driving slower. There's the education side of going to those neighborhoods and explaining this is a 25 mile per hour road. There's different treatments that can be done to kind of come in and say, this is what we want, this is how we're gonna make this road work for this 25.
I would say that's a unique road in that it's not exactly like those other roads that you don't see a lot of impediments to speeding. It's a highly residential neighborhood. It's a neighborhood where people have very often requested sidewalks. The town has conducted studies on sidewalks, and for various unchangeable reasons, it would cost many millions of dollars to do it. And so that's a road that we're concerned about regarding the safety of people who are just actually walking it.
Yeah, and we have the ability to, again, we're at a preliminary stage in this project with our recommendations, so we're at a point where we can focus in on that corridor and maybe not change the design of it, but make some specific corridor recommendations that aren't general to the others.
Just a note on Douglas, because it is close to town, people like to walk to the train station, they like to walk to town, which is why we have so many requests for sidewalks, because of the proximity. So I think for me, making Douglas safer,
that's priority
and
there.
slower is pretty important.
Well, I think we all
Yeah. No, I know,
Right, yeah.
that one just really jumps out at me.
Well, also where Douglas meets Hardscrabble is probably the most confusing intersection in our town.
It is.
I hate that intersection.
Yeah,
It's terrible.
And people go fast in that
And-
stretch right there.
Yeah,
And
maybe if
Douglas
you
is
look
like
into
a connecting artery, like it brings people in different directions to different towns. I think Douglas.
And also where it meets Hunt's Lane, that's a confusing intersection. Do we have a lot of accidents there?
decent.
Yeah, it's very.
Douglas itself is not, we don't have a lot of accidents, but during that intersection, with all the volume coming in.
Yeah.
But it could be, stop rear end,
Mm.
traffic light issues,
Sarah, this was very interesting and informative, and I really
Glad to hear it.
learned a lot, so
Good.
thank you for being here.
Yeah, of
I
course.
really enjoyed this presentation.
Me too, thank you for your patience explaining some of the.
You're good, no, I'm happy, that's what I'm here for, that's what I'm here
Made you
for.
stay late and we asked you.
Well,
That's what I'm here
before
for.
before we all decide to terminate this, I just wanna make sure that there's nothing that Rob or the chief would like to add.
I think I've been doing it during the presentation, so I'm fine.
Okay,
But again,
I just wanna make sure.
they've been wonderful to work with and very professional.
Yeah, I echo that. We've met multiple times virtually. First time meeting in person tonight, but I know you work closely with Lieutenant Rocco with some of the information that the town was able to provide, and yeah, it's been a great process. It's a great report.
Okay, yeah, this is a very important initiative, it matters to a lot of people in town, this has been a hot button issue and you've done a really thorough job and I have learned a lot.
Good.
And I think people will appreciate all these different factors that I'm sure you haven't thought of.
Right.
But we will be continuing our conversation, I don't know if we'll be coming back to board meeting, but we'll be looking at this and speaking to the chief.
Yep,
And
we
I'm not
have a-
sure what the agreement is with you coming back to
Yeah, I'll have
a
to
board
look at
meeting, but
another presentation, I don't recall, but we will be submitting a memorandum, technical memorandum outlining everything I spoke to and a lot more about that background information. It will contain, that document will have appendices that contain all of this data, so it can be combed through, so that will come to you through a draft review at some point when it's ready. And then we can talk about next steps for presentation from there, for kind
Okay.
of a final.
very good, so
Submission.
this is just the first of
Yeah,
maybe
yep,
two
just wanted to
presentations.
meet with you all and let you know kind of the work that we've done and where we're going next, and this is great,
Okay.
this is exactly what I was looking for in terms of feedback on certain corridors, or maybe data location points that need to be adjusted, so.
Okay, and we'll
This
look
is
at
helpful
this
for us
again
too.
since this is our first time seeing this
Yep.
and I'm sure, we can send feedback to the chief and or Rob and
And I'll provide
so
a
we'll
digital
continue, but
digital
this is
version.
not, I just don't want people to think this is the end
Correct.
of it, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you all,
For
great to meet you.
Thank you.
Let's do some AV here.
As she closes out, for those who were not around, when we were doing the downtown project, at one point we looked into putting a light at the Y intersection coming over the bridge into town, putting up a light there, and then we looked at even a traffic circle at some
Instead of
point.
the intersection
So,
splitting.
right, and one of the issues among many, because traffic circle really wasn't something favored, was that the pitch or the angle, for lack of a better term, was not conducive to a traffic circle. So there's so many factors that they look into when doing this, even if they're good in theory.
Right,
It's not
right.
simple.
Right.
I remember those
Might
discussions.
be
So
trading
around
one
about-
problem for another.
It's something that she's not
buildings-
allowed to do, but just our street roads are just so curvy and
This is a very,
The
I,
buildings
this
right
is
there, you
interesting.
couldn't really level out the grade
Right,
where
right.
you would be
Right,
able
was the word I
to
was looking for.
put a traffic circle, there was just no room there.
So interesting.
If it was flat, I think it would lend itself to that, but
Yeah, I feel like I've been.
Otherwise we're gonna close out.
No, chief, thank you very much, good work.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
It does seem like I'm noticing more and more of those small
Movable
roundabouts.
roundabouts, yeah. Like
Not
temporary
movable, but
ones?
no, just the smaller ones.
Mm.
So I grew up in Massachusetts, we called them rotaries, so I still haven't taken that out of my brain.
That's what I
But-
call them too, many trips to Cape Cod, go through the rotary.
Yeah, I've encountered them in different areas,
I see like, it seems like there's more of them.
more and more, yeah.
But
Okay, so we'll wait to see what the recommendations are, maybe we'll put some in where appropriate.
yes, it seems like it's more common. That was really interesting.
So interesting.
Okay, so next on our agenda is the issue of downtown economic revitalization. As many people know, we've had a lot of vacancies in our storefronts in town, in downtown Chappaqua. And we know that this is an issue of private property, private building owners and landlords, and the retail economy in general is not great for retail stores, so a lot of this is driven by outside forces that are not connected to our town, but there are a lot of things within our local economy that we can do. And so I don't wanna overpromise, the town itself is not in control necessarily of what private business owners are doing with their buildings. But we do want to gather our resources to do what we can to improve the vitality of our local business district in downtown Chappaqua. So I have proposed to the board to establish an economic revitalization advisory task force. We have a resolution here and I can go over it. I can go over what the mission would be and what the parameters would be. It would be this economic revitalization advisory task force would be committed to cultivating a dynamic and resilient local economy that reflects and support the community's needs and values. It would make recommendations to expand opportunities for businesses and residents by promoting economic growth and attracting and retaining a diverse range of enterprises, encouraging innovative development. It would promote collaborative partnerships, engage in strategic planning and use of incentives to strengthen the local economy. And so we have a resolution stating those points. And the task force would consist of up to 11 members and be in effect for a 12-month period following the appointment of the members. And it would be renewable or extendable or terminated at the sole discretion of the board. So those are the basic outlines of what the task force would be. We would open it up to applications which we could advertise in the town newsletter as we usually do. The applications would be specific to this task force. It would not be the same applications as the usual boards and commissions. So we would provide a link to the applications on our announcement. And let's see, I think that covers everything I would have to say about this proposal. So I'd like to open it up to the board for discussion and see if you have any further thoughts or ideas.
I wanted to share my thoughts.
I came into discussion with a lot of thoughts and some concerns, and I feel like we had the opportunity to discuss and collaborate on what we feel is the appropriate next steps for the town. I'm really grateful for the way that we work as a board together and everyone. It was just like a very productive conversation. My initial thought was Starbucks closing one of 2 stores in our town was not an indication that we need housing development. I don't think it's a commentary on downtown. There are 34 locations in Manhattan alone that closed in dense residential areas which see a ton of foot traffic. And I just wanna note, I'm sure there are people paying attention, it's not lost on us that in the past year, we did the Envision survey, and I'm quoting directly from those results, that housing development was not well received. 74% of residents do not consider housing to be a priority for the land proximate to the train station. Only 12% of residents cite housing as a priority. These results are public, they're on the website. One of my concerns is that what would start out as good intentions would become a vehicle for outsourcing our responsibilities. But after conversating with the board, it's clear to me that this is an opportunity to tap into expertise of community members who have fresh ideas for how to make the town the best it can be. And so I'm looking forward to receiving applications and looking into what our residents can offer. I think there's clearly goals and objectives that are stated. The size of the task force is indicated, it's a 12-month period, and this is an opportunity to get advice. They're not a voting board, they're not going to like Vicky said, this is an advisory board, so they're going to help us and it'll be a collaboration. I'm really excited to work with our residents.
So that's kind of all I wanted to say. I think this is a good step in the right direction and I appreciate, bless you, Rob, appreciate the conversation we had and I'm looking forward to next steps.
I just wanna be clear that the conversation we had was with our attorney, getting advice of counsel
Sorry.
in executive session. I don't want the public to think that we're, meeting
No,
not
you're-
in public, so
Thank you.
we do rely on legal advice. And Ally, thank you for bringing up the concern about housing. I really did not think that would be connected to this, but I do appreciate hearing that there was a concern about that, so I'm glad that you addressed it.
Thank you.
Yes, it's important to know what this is about. This is about downtown retail and getting the best advice we can from people with expertise in how to attract and incentivize stores to open in a way that is sustainable and that really it takes advantage of incentives that we, the five of us on the town board, don't really know about. We don't have expertise, and it's really incumbent upon us to do all we can to support the town, to support our merchants, and to have a healthy, robust local economy. These are stores and services that residents rely on. Our economic base is important in trying to keep our taxes down and not having them be solely supported by family homes. And so it's really about the retail in downtown Chappaqua.
So I'm really glad that we're taking this step because over the last couple of weeks since especially since Starbucks closed, I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people expressing concerns and sharing ideas. And I think this is a really good opportunity for us to take a look at the business environment in our downtown and leverage the experience, ideas of a cross section of our community. People who have had a lot of experience here, people who have experience in retail, in real estate, and we always have the ideas coming from the community, but I think it's nice to have it in a structured manner where we can actually have them work with us to formulate some recommendations that we can then explore. And there may be things that the five of us are not going to think of, that our council is not going to suggest to us. And we have such a talented, invested, and educated community that I think it's a really great opportunity to take advantage of that. And I'm really happy to be part of this committee.
Okay.
Or sorry, advisory task force.
It's a task force, yes, advisory task force. Yeah.
I agree with Ally that the Starbucks is not commentary on the downtown, though I think that commentary on the downtown is the downtown. And there's a legal term, it's racist, a lot, whatever the thing speaks for itself. Our downtown is at times, I hate to say it, pretty pathetic. At times it's pretty vibrant, and at times it's cyclical. And we need to have stability in whatever the town is going to be to have it thrive, otherwise it's not going to be the best it can be for this community. And I look at 50 North Greeley and I'm excited about that whenever ultimately that comes online. I think that's a great opportunity. Look at the Lutheran Church, the old Lutheran Church, how long has that been in that condition? I've been here since 2006. I think that's when I came here. So a long time, and there's been so many opportunities that I don't think that have been seized that could have been. And I don't think anyone should listen to this conversation and say, oh no, here comes the form-based code. That's not what's happening. It's an opportunity to engage residents who have expertise, to look at steps that can really make a difference for the future. And I'm not gonna be sitting on this board ultimately whenever it gets implemented and that happens down the road. But I would just say to all of us, and this is not patronizing because ultimately I didn't carry whatever it was over the finish line either, that we have studied this, we did the master plan all those years ago. And there's been some great ideas, and creating a book just to sit stagnant and just to revisit and do this again in 10 years is a waste of time, emotional capital, people capital, and efforts. So compromise is king. This sounds like a great first step. I'm excited about it. And Vicky, I thank you for having the initiative and trying to move this ball forward.
Thank you.
Well, I will just add to what everyone else has said, and I think I agree with all of you. You know, I've lived here for over 20 years, and I think for the entirety of that time, people have been talking about wanting vitalization in town, or revitalization. And something I've learned serving on the town board is that we have a very talented community and a very smart community with a lot of experience in different arenas to bear. And so I think this is a great idea to enlist people in our community who have specific knowledge and talent, and also just have been involved in our downtown in a variety of ways, to just come forward and collaborate and talk to us about, you know, what could just make our town better, more vibrant, and more exciting to live in. And, you know, I think we are hoping for applicants who've, yes, lived here for maybe 20 or more years, but also people who are new to town. And so I'm excited to see how this goes and what kind of feedback we get. And I really hope we can bring some of the recommendations forward and bring it to life. I really hope, you know, it ends up being very productive, and I'm committed to that idea. So thank you.
Okay, this is fantastic. I'm excited. I wasn't allowing myself to be excited until I could feel that you were all excited about this, so great. We are all in this together, and it's really the whole community's in this. We may pick up to 11 people, but we always take feedback from our residents. So if you end up not being on the committee and you develop ideas, you can always share them with us, and we're very open to that. Okay, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate this. I'm looking forward to it.
Are we gonna have the resolution on the agenda?
I will read the resolution when we get to the others and we vote. Okay. Okay, so now we're up to administrative items. Rob, do you wanna take it away?
We have retroactive payment of claims for checks dated October 3rd of 2025. We have the authorization to award the bid for the downtown Chappaqua and Millwood winter lighting and decorating. That is the Christmas Lighting Company. It's a company that we've used for the last several years. We're gonna follow the same template that we did last year. We're gonna have the snowflakes on the fence of the Millwood Park, and then all of the light poles that we've done the last couple of years. That bid was $22,750. They were the lowest response. Again, we've used them the last few years and we've been happy with their service. We have an authorization to purchase vacuum services for the filter media removal at the Millwood Water Treatment Plant as part of the process to replace some of the filter media in the equipment there. We require vacuum services to clean those out. We're awarding that to TAM Enterprises for the amount of $13,200. We have the authorization to share services of other New York State County bids for the purchase of pipe relining services. That's a section of drainage pipe on Newstead Lane. This is work that our engineering department's working with Public Works to replace. The cost for that is $56,237. We have an authorization to approve educational expenses, the amount of $995. That was one of the Department of Public Works staff members that took training for arc welding, which will come in useful at the recycling garage. We have an authorization to attend the SNEAPA conference for Sabrina in the amount of $956. That's part of her certification or continuing education each year. So she will attend that conference. We have the authorization to attend the NYSPRS conference. That's in White Plains. 2 members of our recreation and park staff will attend. It's a 2-day conference. No lodging is necessary, just the cost of the conference itself. $1,100 for the 2 staff members total. we have an resolution to accept existing roadways and correct road names. So what happened here, over a period of years, quite a few years actually, we've changed the names officially of some of the town roads. And what happened when each year we submit a list for our CHIPS funding, and for whatever reason it was noticed this year, some of the road names that we had on our inventory did not match what the state had. So this is just looking to correct that. There were 4 different roads. One was Hunt's Place was renamed to Joan Corwin Way. Lake Road was renamed to Meeting House. Woodside Road was renamed to Sarles, and Quaker Bridge was renamed to Quaker Ridge. So it's just looking for authorization to officially change that. And finally, authorization to finalize the contract with SNP Consultants. This is for the work that they did up at Millwood Park, the ADA walkway. We've finally been able to close out that project. It comes in at a cost of $193,731. That's actually $7,519 below the original estimate.
Okay, thank you, Rob. And on the topic of road names, I wanna remind everyone that we do intend to have the honorary name for Mr. Lang's Way, which we've been ready to do for a number of months now. We talked about it over a year ago, and so we're ready to do that. We've just wanted to keep that on everyone's radar. I've simply been waiting for the family to tell me when they're all ready, and for, you know, it's very difficult to get people together and very different things happen in life, so we're waiting for the family to let us know when would be a good time. We don't wanna do it without them. So, but I just wanna remind everyone that we're ready to do that. Okay, so that ends the work session. May I have a motion to adjourn the work session and open the town board meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are now at our town board meeting. Rob, do you have any announcements?
I actually don't.
Okay,
That's a great
Very-
announcement.
very good. Have we ever thought of changing this format? It does seem awkward. I mean, you know that I've sat on another board.
Mhm.
It just
You have said this before.
seems awkward to have the work session and then we sit here and we go to a town board meeting. I'd like to really talk about at some point the purpose of that, because you can have a meeting and have discussion within the framework of a meeting. It's entirely possible. It just seems a little stilted every time we do it. Jeremy, you've been doing this for a longer period, and maybe there's wisdom to doing it this way that I haven't discerned yet, so I'm not in a hurry to change anything.
I'm unaware, just that's the way it was and that's the way it's
Right.
been, I don't know the reason.
Yeah.
Where's Lino?
Where's
What's
Lino
the
when we
question
need
for
him?
Lino?
I didn't expect to bring this up, but every time I do this, I really wonder about it, but anyway, I'm just throwing it.
I agree, it feels odd, but
Ally is nodding very strongly.
Every time I'm like, why do we do it this way?
No, I've done something like this before. I did say we didn't
You
need to
did.
repeat the consent agenda
And I was like,
item, so I've
yes,
made some
change it.
changes already. Let's think about this and let's talk about this next time.
I support those changes.
Alright.
Would you mind if I made one announcement though?
Yes, please do.
So on behalf of the Conservation Board, I wanted to invite everybody to a presentation on November 2nd at 2:00 at the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center. Doug Tallamy is gonna be presenting How Can I Help? He is basically a conservation superstar. He's an author, a fantastic speaker, and we'll be talking about what we can do in our own yards when it comes to the insects, the native plants and the birds, and how they all work together to kind of preserve the biodiversity and promote it in our own backyards. We do expect it to sell out, so please register. You can register through the link in the newsletter.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. And now for my supervisor's report. It will be very important to many members of this community to acknowledge the fact that the Israeli hostages have been returned to their homes. 20 living hostages were returned and 4 deceased. It's been over 2 years, 738 days of tragedy, and those who are yet living are back with their loved ones. We share their relief and joy to be reunited with their families. We acknowledge that the remains of 24 are still missing. And we grieve with those families who have not found the painful closure that they need. And we hope and pray that the day will come soon. And we hope for a new peace, the alleviation of all suffering, including for innocent Palestinians in Gaza, and better days for both Israelis and Palestinians who have a renewed opportunity to forge a future built on peaceful coexistence and human dignity for all. If anyone has anything else they would like to add to that, it's a happy, joyful day, but also a continued solemn moment.
Thank you, Vicky, and sharing your sentiment.
Absolutely. I was gonna say second.
Okay. All right, and on another note, I would like to acknowledge that this is Board of Education Appreciation Week. I want to extend on behalf of the board, I want to extend our deep appreciation to the members of all the school boards in the town of Newcastle. I'm not gonna name them all because I'm going to forget. Most of our residents attend the Chappaqua Central School District. So I will name those members because I do know them. I want to thank Kaylee Wong, our Board of Education President, Alyssa Dorfman, Vice President, Matt Auerbach, Board Member, new member Allison Steinbauer, and new member Tim McNamara, and I know that the board has a new student member, Matthew Wallstatter. So thank you all for the very hard work that you do, and we appreciate it. You run one of the best school districts. We appreciate the administration as well. And we recognize that you're true volunteers working with no salary. Not everybody knows that. So thank you again, and for Board on the occasion of Board of Education Appreciation Week. That will conclude my supervisor's report unless anyone else on the board would like to report on something. No? Okay. Let's see. Rob, do you have an administrator's report?
Yeah, just a brief administrator's report. I just wanted to update that we have finished the first stage of the budget. Our work started in July, meeting with the department heads over the month of August. They went back and worked with their staffs to determine their requests for the budget for 2026. We then met with new controller Carl Schlegel and myself, and we kind of refined their requests. The board had the opportunity to meet with all the department heads last week and review what was titled the tentative budget. So the board had the opportunity to hear that and to ask their questions of the department heads. We have a few slight revisions that will be made, and that will be then the preliminary budget. And that will be, we will set a public hearing for, I think it's December second. Yeah, December 2nd. So that will be the budget presentation and public hearing, and the board would be expected to approve the final budget on December 9th.
Rob, remind me, did we set that public hearing?
Not yet, we'll set that, I think, on November 12th.
Okay, and there's enough time.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
there will-
board mentioned we were going to leave the meeting of October 28th if the board had further questions to discuss with myself, Carl, or any of the department heads, where we could make any changes prior to presenting the preliminary budget. So we'll have that for November 12th, that's enough time, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, to be able to set the hearing for December 2nd.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Okay, now we're at our public comment period. Anyone with a public comment, please come up to the microphone and identify yourself and your place of residence.
Good evening, Laura Lenehan, Chappaqua resident. I hope lots of people who didn't attend in person will listen to the recording. Two very important topics that were covered by the board, the speed reduction and the economic revitalization, which I found very interesting, both of them. So I have, I guess I can do both of my comments in sequence since I'm the only one here to comment. The first is related to both topics that were discussed by the board, as things would have it, related to public safety and also the busyness or lack thereof of the downtown. So I submitted the documents for both of my comments online. I'm not familiar with the process, whether there's any mechanism to have some of the photographs that I took actually shown. I only made one copy. So
Thank you.
we can hand it around, but I'll start with that. Speaking of walking on Douglas, I walk on Douglas. I walk a lot around the town. So I've come up with some suggestions for the downtown area. The first is for a stop sign at the intersection of South Greeley and Washington Avenue. There is a crosswalk with an alert at the library. And actually, just looking at South Greeley today, there are lots and lots of crosswalks, which is great. But it was brought up at an earlier town board meeting, excuse me, that speaking of hills that encourage high velocities, as South Greeley comes into town, lots of people, lots of drivers enjoy that hill. And it can be dangerous. And so I propose that there be a stop sign at that crosswalk, so just past Smith Street, right by the library. And that would stop cars from speeding into town. It would force them to stop and slow down. And so that I consider that a high priority on the basis of safety. Happy to encourage any discussion if anyone wants to comment, but otherwise I can go on. The other proposal I have to do with crosswalks on King Street. So, and this is related, I think, to the revitalization question and safety. I think the town could be more walkable. And on King Street, going up the hill, there's a sidewalk on the left side as you go up the hill. And speaking of the decrepit Lutheran church, the sidewalk basically stops at the Lutheran church on that side. There is sidewalk beyond that, but it's interrupted by areas without sidewalk. And there's shopping on that side of the street, and there are a number of, or there are maybe 3 streets that intersect from that side as you go up the hill that have nicely populated neighborhoods. And so people who live in those neighborhoods have to cross King Street, which is busy, to get to the sidewalk. And I have observed this, there are a lot of people, so if you put crosswalks, you're not talking about having a constant interruption of the flow of traffic. You're not putting a stop sign up. But I've seen kids, Bell School students, they get out of school and they roam around and then they turn to go up the hill and then there's no sidewalk and they're running across the street. So I think there's a safety issue there. And I've seen people, because I do walk around the neighborhoods, who hike up from the train and then they have to cross King Street to get into their neighborhoods.
I don't wanna engage too much, but very quickly, Rob, if I'm not mistaken, when we did the revitalization for the downtown infrastructure project, we wanted to put a crosswalk there. It's a state road and we were denied.
Okay.
So just
Also-
a point of fact.
I believe the sidewalk stops because of a lot of a wall which goes right up to the where there's no setback. So the wall goes right up to the street and I believe there's no room for,
There are other
A
places
sidewalk.
where there might be, but
yeah.
it is very narrow. Well,
So that is not
I'll make my,
possible.
Jeremy, your memory was accurate. They wanted to put a crosswalk, I think where the Historical Society is, going across the road
Yeah,
there.
we were denied.
The state wasn't
It
inclined to
is
do
a
it at
state
the time.
road. Mhm.
yeah, well, maybe I'm wasting my breath, but here I am. We do have state representatives, so. And just, you know, in terms of walking, an advantage of safety for walking is people can walk to shop. People can walk to the library. Children can walk to school. When the sidewalk was built out Quaker Road, I thought it was built for my family. My kids walked to Bell School. I live on Kip Street, close to Quaker Road, walked to the train. So I think it could help with economic revitalization. The safer it is, the more people can walk. And also would reduce car traffic. The first place that I would suggest, I think the Historic Society is unnecessary because there is sidewalk that comes up in front of the Historic Society. But I suggest at the cluster of stores on the east side to put a crosswalk there because then people could cross and shop. Of course, you can drive in and park, but then you would encourage people who are just roaming around town. So that's the second photograph that I put in. So that would give safe access to shopping from the sidewalk side and going back and forth. I put that as sort of a medium priority. Going up the hill, Highland Avenue, which is across from Castle Road. That photograph, I photographed facing downhill, there's a blind curve as cars coming up approach Highland Avenue. And that is for Chappaqua, relatively densely populated area. So I think it would be great for residents to be able to get into town, and I think it might increase property values. You never know. And then the next one is Prospect Drive, which is further up this. Anyway, I thought Highland was a high priority. The Prospect Drive and King Street, similarly, it's densely populated for Chappaqua residential area, and it would be great for people to be able to get out of their neighborhood and cross and safely walk into town. So those are my King Street recommendations. And then I walk on Quaker and I walk Pine Cliff Road. I like to go up to the Audubon Sanctuary there on the river, so it's a great place to go. So I actually think there should be a crosswalk across Quaker, and again, I'm sure it's a state road, at Pine Cliff. It's close enough to town that people will walk in to get to the train, they'll walk to shop. And there's, you know, if you wanna cross Quaker on a weekday, there's constant traffic. And occasionally someone will graciously stop to let me cross, but usually, you know, I have to wait several minutes to get across. And as I say, there's an Audubon Preserve at the top of Pine Cliff, so it's really wonderful access. I met a new neighbor who said, "Where is it nice to walk? I understand there's an Audubon nearby." And I didn't say, "Yeah, but you have to cross Quaker to get to it." So repeating myself, but I think that would be a high priority. And again, I think for people who live there, it could increase property values to have that kind of access.
You know, I just wanna say, and again, not to get into back and forth, I think we all agree that walkability is a priority and it can advance so many interests, you know, the revitalization of downtown, healthy walking, getting, you know, cars off the street. But when you're talking about crosswalks on state roads, you can see the traffic study that we have done and all of the considerations that go into whether you can even reduce you know, those miles per hour from 30 to 25 and how unsafe that could actually be in certain cases. And so when you talk about state roads where people are going, you know, the speed limit is 35, they may be going 45. And there are a lot of considerations that go into safety and whether you want to promote people walking across those roads where people may be going 45 miles an hour. and that those being state roads. How safe that would be, notwithstanding the desirability of making those connections that you're noticing between certain streets, you know, for instance, to go to the sanctuary, et cetera. Those are considerations as well, but we all have to think about the safety of the speed of cars and expecting them to stop at a crosswalk when they may be going 45 miles an hour, and whether that's safe for pedestrians, children, bicyclists, whoever's expecting to cross. And plus it's a state road, we have no control over it.
Can I make one comment? I think we're forgetting the fact that we have Chapline coming. And, you know, I know that town boards in the past have heavily considered expanding sidewalks and walkability. And I always like to quote former town administrator Jill Shapiro, because she said if it were easy, we would have done it already, right? We would love to put sidewalks everywhere and make the town more accessible, but it's either cost prohibitive, or as Vicky pointed out, it's a state road and we have no control, or some other factor, which is why Chapline and connecting the hamlet and walkability, thinking outside the box as to how we can increase walkability and connect the hamlet, is why Chapline is so exciting, I think, for all of us. And even though it's a few years away, it's actually happening.
It is very exciting, for sure.
We hear you. And I know that boards before me have considered this and we've considered it, but we are considering other ways to make the town more accessible to everyone.
So State Road aside, you're suggesting that a crosswalk could make people unsafe because it would encourage them to cross?
Well, I think you have to consider safety and the speed at which cars are traveling and what the road conditions are, other than the fact of what the connections might be. There are other pretty serious considerations. But mainly, we don't have control over this road. It's a state road.
There are no circumstances under which they would reconsider that?
I can't speak for the state DOT. We don't know, but these are,
I'll ask them.
okay, you are free to do that.
I have contacted them about other traffic problems on the Sawmill, and lights that don't work and things like that.
Okay.
I was a driving commuter on the Sawmill for a long time. So I won't, I put Commodore Road crossing, but I thought that was medium, and then I'm just, as was said about Elizabeth Warren, nevertheless she persisted. Finally, I have a bracelet that
I've been accused of doing that.
yes, Chappaqua Mountain Road at Quaker, and I just wanted to include the photograph because if you look at it carefully, you can see that there are political signs that you might be happy about on the triangle there. Vote for. Okay, so anyway, I gave my pitch about the stop sign and crosswalks, and I'll be happy to harass the Department of Transportation. Why not? So the other is just an update on gas-powered leaf blowers. I repeated the survey that I did the first 2 weeks of June, the final 2 weeks of September, to see if there had been any change and any impact of the enforcement. And I also had a monthly contact with Chief Carroll to find out how many complaints had been made, how many summonses had been issued, and how many fines had been paid. And interestingly, I observed over 2 weeks, 47 instances of leaf blower use. This is about an hour a day that I'm walking. 46 were gas powered. So that's 94%. The same as in June. And there were 3 times that electric leaf blowers were being used. Also basically the same. And as was the case in June, I observed employees of the town of Newcastle using a gas-powered leaf blower to clear clippings from a very small area of growth, weeds along a sidewalk, and not something that needed a gas-powered leaf blower. It could certainly been handled with a broom or an electric leaf blower, which the town does have. So I'm perplexed by that. During that period of, the 4-month period of time, there were 22, to the police, I didn't ask the building department, 22 reports of gas-powered leaf blower use. 4 summonses were issued, no police patrol. I found out from the court that 2 of the summonses were dismissed, 1 fine was paid, 1 is still outstanding. So my conclusions are the same as in June, that the use of the leaf blowers remains widespread, despite the acknowledged awareness by town residents. That gas-powered leaf blowers dominate the use of leaf blowers, that there is neither active nor effective enforcement of the ban, and that the town uses gas-powered leaf blowers for small jobs. So my recommendations are basically the same, that there be some change to the enforcement mechanism, designating an employee to patrol, for example, and potentially to expand the targets of the summonses from just the homeowner to the landscaper as well. And the second is that the town should use electric leaf blowers except for large jobs. So that's my report.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Is there anyone online for public comment? Okay, all right, so we will close the public comment period. Let's see, Rob, do you wanna go over the consent agenda? Let's see, is there anything in addition to the administrative items that you went through on the?
No, there's nothing. The consent agenda that you have before you has 9 items. We're approving items 1 through 8. Number 9 is okay.
Okay, and we will include the establishment of the economic revitalization.
Is that gonna be consent or you were gonna read that one?
We were,
Is that,
is that on the,
No, I think you were gonna read it.
I'm going to read it.
oh, yeah, not in the consent,
It's
number
not,
5.
it's not on the consent.
Number 5 of the resolutions, yeah.
And you read it at the end.
Oh, I see, it's on the resolution. Oh, okay, let me see.
Well, it's not, but it will be.
Oh, it will be number 5, but there is no number 5. Thank you, okay. All right, so let's go ahead.
Okay, I can start.
You can start.
I move to adopt items 1 through 8 as listed on the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I move to retroactively approve the payment of claims in the amount of $4,594,630.81 listed on the summary AP check register and detail voucher detail report, both dated October 3rd, 2025, checks were printed and distributed to each claimant listed on Friday, October 3rd, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ally?
I move to authorize the appointment of the following individuals to the Committee for Mental Resilience for a 2-year term effective October 15th, 2025 through December 31st, 2027. Joelle Anderson, Meredith Angert Kenna, Kim Goldner, and Marissa Kornblau.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do you wanna
Me?
take 3 and Jen can take 4?
Okay. I move to authorize the following resolution, I move to authorize the appointment of the following individuals to the Conservation Board. I'm having a hard time. At the corresponding terms indicated below, Brendan Kavanaugh, 2 years, October 15th, 2025 to December 31st, 2027, and Roma Haghala, I apologize if I said your name incorrectly.
Hugaholly.
I apologize. 1-year term, October 15th, 2025 to December 31st, 2026.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to authorize the appointment of Bailey Card and Kate Haskowitz as student members of the Sustainability Advisory Board for a 1-year term effective October 15, 2025 through December 31st, 2026.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I move to authorize the approval of the following resolution. Whereas the town of Newcastle seeks to establish an economic revitalization advisory task force, defined as task force, committed to cultivating a dynamic and resilient local economy that reflects and support the community's needs and values. Whereas the task force would make recommendations to the town board to expand opportunities for businesses and residents by promoting economic growth, attracting and retaining a diverse range of enterprises, and encouraging innovative revitalization incentives. Whereas the task force, through collaborative partnerships, strategic planning, and the thoughtful use of incentives, will propose initiatives to strengthen the local economy and enhance the overall quality of life for all who live and work in the community. Now be it resolved that the town of Newcastle hereby establishes an economic revitalization advisory task force. Be it further resolved that the task force will consist of up to 11 members and will be in effect for a 12-month period following the appointment of its members. And be it further resolved that the task force may be renewed, extended, or terminated at the sole discretion of the town board. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that does it for the resolution. I'd like to have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are hereby adjourned. Thank you very much. Good night.